In recent weeks, two YouTubers, Coffeezilla and SomeOrdinaryGamers, teamed up to expose a scheme involving several major social media influencers, online gambling, and an online platform, at the heart of the scheme, called Wizza. Wizza claims to run online sweepstakes to raise money for charity. However, it turns out to be far more complicated than that, and ethically, financially, and legally dubious. But this story isn't about Wizza, it's about the Wizza of the Midwest, a for-profit corporation, called Sabadash. This video will lay out evidence that suggests significant foul play, evidence that should concern every one of Sabadash's users, for-profit and non-profit partners, and evidence that should be carefully examined by the press, regulators, and authorities. Is Sabadash a scam? A grift? Or something else? Or is it really the wholly altruistic corporation they claim to be? Let's take a look. Ladies and gentlemen, as you will see, if Sabadash isn't a case of charity fraud, illegal gambling, self-dealing, among other serious legal issues, then it's certainly a case of incompetence, deceit, negligence, and the perils of placing trust in people who have never truly proven themselves to be trustworthy. But before we get into the people, we need to understand how Sabadash is advertised to work. According to Sabadash, the way they work is quite simple. Sabadash conducts sweepstakes to raise money for local charities, nothing inherently wrong there. Then, Sabadash, which is a for-profit private corporation, gives the money they raise to a 501c3 foundation, called the Beer By Bike Brigade, who then sends the money to the local charities that Sabadash partnered with in the first place. Unfortunately, it's not that simple. And oftentimes, it doesn't work like that at all. To understand how that could be, we need to go deeper. First, we need to understand where Sabadash and the Beer By Bike Brigade came from and who is behind these organizations. We also need to examine why the whole scheme should have been halted more than a month ago, how legal sweepstakes are conducted compared to how Sabadash does it, and how Sabadash appears to have blatantly violated several laws related to conducting legal raffles. So, let's begin by looking at where Sabadash and the Beer By Bike Brigade came from. In May of 2012, the Beer By Bike Brigade was started by Mario Revoking as a monthly bar hop on bicycles. Over time, the Beer By Bike Brigade grew to become a massively popular monthly gathering and valuable brand. Then, in July of 2019, the Beer By Bike Brigade was approved by the IRS to become a tax-exempt non-profit foundation. Soon thereafter, a new company popped up, Sabadash LLC. In December of 2019, Sabadash LLC was incorporated in the state of Wisconsin and launched their public Facebook page. Then, a few months later, a Texas-based company you will learn more about later, JMTS Inc., registered the domain sabadashapp.com. Roughly 8 months later, something interesting happened. Sabadash LLC changed their registered agent. It is unclear at this time who the registered agent was originally, or who it is now. And unfortunately, when contacted about this story, an attorney for Sabadash said he couldn't answer that question, and several others, at that time. Now, let's look at who, specifically, is behind these organizations. First, we will look at the Beer By Bike Brigade. Based on public records, we know that the organization was originally founded by Mario Revoking. Revoking continues to serve as the public face of the Beer By Bike Brigade, and, importantly, is the primary social media manager for the organization, which it bears repeating, is now a tightly regulated 501c3 nonprofit. The second key player for the Beer By Bike Brigade is Charles or Chuck Behrens. According to social media posts, Behrens is the board treasurer for the 501c3, and the group's registered agent. Beyond that, if there are others involved, there is no public trace we could find. Despite regularly preaching the virtues of transparency, the Beer By Bike Brigade has not disclosed a list of their board members, directors, employees, let alone any financials, or meeting minutes. However, the IRS generally requires a minimum of 3 board members for every nonprofit, meaning, if Mr. Behrens is a member of the board, there must be at least 2 more. Who they are, however, is a mystery at this point. Now, let's look at the players involved in Sabadash. And see if you notice any similarities? Here are the players involved with Sabadash. Again, you've got Mr. Revoking and Mr. Behrens, unknown others, and the tech development team mentioned earlier. Mr. Revoking, just like with the Beer By Bike Brigade, is Sabadash's social media manager, and the company's public face. He is also, importantly, a financial benefactor of Sabadash, and referred to Sabadash as his company in August of 2020. Then there is Mr. Behrens reprising his role as registered agent for Sabadash, the same role he serves for the Beer By Bike Brigade. And according to an email exchange with Mr. Behrens, he seemed to confirm he is also a corporate attorney for Sabadash as well. The significant overlap between these two organizations is the first sign of trouble. You see, overlap like this brings a heap of serious potential issues, among them self-dealing, inurement, private benefit, conflicts of interest. Here are a couple obvious examples. Example number 1. Every time Mr. Revoking logs onto the Beer By Bike Brigade's Facebook page to advertise Sabadash's app or one of their campaigns or offers, he is using a 501c3's social media megaphone to advertise his privately owned for-profit company, Sabadash LLC. Example number 2. By serving as the corporate attorney for Sabadash, Mr. Behrens is almost certainly being financially compensated in some way. If that is the case, Mr. Behrens, as a board member and secretary for the Beer By Bike Brigade, is guiding the activities of a tax-exempt non-profit which is deeply entangled with a private company which he has a financial stake in and a unique obligation to as a corporate attorney. We could clear up a lot of the mud in the water here if we could look at the Beer By Bike Brigade's annual financial reports. Unfortunately, despite being legally required by the IRS to publish their financials each year, the Beer By Bike Brigade has failed to supply even a single year's financial information to the IRS. Luckily for the Beer By Bike Brigade, the IRS gives a little more leniency to new nonprofits than the state of Wisconsin does. The IRS will automatically revoke an organization's tax-exempt status if they fail to file the necessary financial information for 3 years, a milestone that the Beer By Bike Brigade is remarkably close to. The state of Wisconsin is a different story. In the state of Wisconsin, if you don't file your annual financial reports on time, you get a warning, and if you don't heed that warning, you get your charitable status revoked. And that's exactly what happened to the Beer By Bike Brigade earlier this year. Wisconsin's Department of Financial Institutions, Division of Corporate and Consumer Services revoked the Beer By Bike Brigade's charitable status for failing to supply required annual financial records. In a letter sent to Mr. Behrens, the state of Wisconsin notified the Beer By Bike Brigade that their charitable status was revoked and that their organization, quote, shall immediately cease any activities for which a Wisconsin charitable organization registration is necessary. The provisions of this notice shall be binding upon the charitable organization and its directors, officers, employees, agents, successors, assigns, and other persons participating in the conduct of its affairs. After getting this notification, the prudent thing to do here would be for the Beer By Bike Brigade to have alerted their followers that they needed to put a pause on their operations to get their fiscal house in order. Is that what they did? No. Did the people over at Sabadash know that the Beer By Bike Brigade, a vital piece of their operations, had their charitable status revoked? Well, considering that by all accounts, these two organizations are run by the same people, there's no way they couldn't have known. Did Sabadash take to social media to put the brakes on what they were doing and let the people know why? Of course not. Did Revoking use one of his many social media platforms to rise to the moment and live out the virtues of transparency he has preached for years? No. Everyone involved and in the know acted as if nothing happened. So much for this group's commitment to transparency. So where does this leave us? Unfortunately, it leaves us with a lot of questions and reason to proceed with a level of suspicion and diligence. Thankfully, even though the cast of characters examined thus far haven't been exactly forthright, there are enough clues out there that we can start to piece this whole thing together. The first clue is to look at other organizations like Sabadash. Luckily for this investigation, but maybe not luckily for society writ large, there are other Sabadashes out there. Two prominent examples are Omaze and Wizza. Wizza is the unbelievably shady multi-million-dollar operation mentioned at the beginning of this video for being exposed on YouTube. The second is Omaze, which seems to be the most prolific organization of this kind, and despite having many issues of its own, has come the closest to fessing up to what really happens to your hard-earned money when you enter one of their sweepstakes. According to Omaze.com, 60% of money received through their platform goes to charity. Clearly, 60% is a whole lot less than 100%, which is how much a charity would get if you just gave money to them directly. But, Omaze makes the case, as one could bet Sabadash would as well, that 60% of a lot of money is more than 100% of a little money. Basically, it's a trade-off. Now, how does that line up with Sabadash? Let's take a look. According to Sabadash, all, or most, donations made through their app and website go to the Beer by Bike Brigade. This is essentially the same claim Omaze makes. Omaze claims that 60% goes to charity. Sabadash claims that some percentage greater than 50% goes to charity, because the Beer by Bike Brigade is a charity, unless of course you ask the state of Wisconsin. But Sabadash isn't saying, if we launch a campaign for the Red Cross, some percentage greater than 50% goes to the Red Cross. Instead, they are saying, if we launch a campaign for the Red Cross, we will give some percentage greater than 50% to the Beer by Bike Brigade, who will give some amount of that to the Red Cross. So, the real question here is, where is the money going and who is getting paid? Logically, if $1 in does not equal $1 out, then some amount of money is leaking out of the transaction process for one reason or another. Sure, some amount of leakage is normal, and both Sabadash and the Beer by Bike Brigade have cut a lot of checks to local charities, and that, on its own, is terrific. However, for all the preaching the Beer by Bike Brigade and Revoking have done about the importance of financial transparency for charitable work, they've been remarkably opaque in letting the public and local charities know if anyone else is getting a cut. Why not be transparent? With so much direct overlap between who's involved with Sabadash and Beer by Bike Brigade, so many stages in the transaction process, and both Sabadash's and the Beer by Bike Brigade's demonstrated issues with financial transparency, there are many opportunities for money to be shuffled around and reason to be concerned. And again, it is because of the lack of voluntary mandatory disclosures from these groups that we need to start asking some prodding questions to put the puzzle together. Questions such as this one: is Mr. Revoking taking a cut? Take a look at social media and just ask around. It's obvious that Mr. Revoking is the most deeply invested individual in Sabadash, and is the one person that everything ties back to. So, to deduce where Sabadash and Beer by Bike Brigade funds are likely to be going, if not just to charities as advertised, all roads lead back to Mr. Revoking, who called Sabadash his company, hasn't had a normal job since leaving Quick Trip in 2019. And since the man clearly isn't homeless, he must be making money somewhere, and it appears Sabadash and the Beer by Bike Brigade has been his full-time job since 2019. Maybe we can find some more clues in Sabadash's fine print. Clues like this: sweepstakes revenue doesn't appear to be Sabadash's only revenue stream. In fact, if you look at the fine print on Sabadash's website, you'll see they have made sure to carve out space for affiliate marketing and advertising opportunities. What kind of affiliate marketing and advertising arrangements are we talking about? At this point, we don't know. What else can we learn from Sabadash's fine print? First, that apparently, Sabadash may, from time to time and at any time without notice to you, modify their terms of service. Also, that they may be tampering with results by limiting the frequency an individual is eligible to win a prize. And that if something bad happens between you and Sabadash, you can kiss your legal rights goodbye. And that Sabadash can terminate their user agreements at any time for any reason, with or without cause. Seems a little suspicious, no? Speaking of things that are incredibly suspicious, let's sink our teeth into Sabadash's recent raffle of a Porsche Boxster, one of the many past contests conspicuously absent from Sabadash's bare-bones webpage devoted to past contests' odds, retail value, costs, etc. But before we dive into the numbers and details of the Porsche, we need to get a few things straight that affects this Porsche raffle, many past raffles conducted by Sabadash and the Beer by Bike Brigade, and an ongoing raffle of a VW bus. Online raffles and online raffle ticket sales are illegal in Wisconsin. In the state of Wisconsin, raffles may only be conducted by charitable organizations, meaning Sabadash may not be involved since they are a for-profit private business. The Beer by Bike Brigade may not conduct a raffle currently because their charitable status has been revoked. If the Beer by Bike Brigade ever conducted raffles in the past without attaining a raffle license with the state of Wisconsin, they could be in serious trouble. We should also understand what the state of Wisconsin says about conducting legal sweepstakes versus various forms of illegal gambling. There are three elements to consider: prize, chance, and consideration. If a prize is offered and there is a chance to win, that's considered a legal sweepstakes. But if there is a prize being offered and a chance to win and any sort of advantage or disadvantage to a participant, that's considered an illegal lottery. So to keep things really clear, it would be illegal to only offer a paid entry option. And it would be illegal to coerce someone to a paid entry option over a free option, which really makes you wonder about this bit of Sabadash fine print, which, reading between the lines, is saying the following: if a contest allows 150 entries, you can get all your entries in just a couple clicks if you can afford it. But if you can't afford to pay for 150 entries, the way you have to get your free entries is incredibly burdensome. You must create, fill out, and pay for postage for 150 individual postcards. And speaking of being able to pay, what if a low-income person actually won a big prize like a Porsche? As YouTuber Danny Gonzalez documented, due to the tax implications of receiving an extremely valuable gift and needing to report it as taxable income, this creates many big problems. Receiving the prize could easily push someone into a new higher tax bracket. The winner's actual income may even not be enough to pay for the tax burden. As a result, schemes like this are not truly accessible to everyone. They are only accessible to those who already have a lot of money and fancy cars. With all that in mind, let's see if the numbers even add up, because luckily for us, Mr. Revoking and others were very boisterous and specific about the numbers they claim for this potentially illegal Porsche raffle. On June 3, 2020, Beer By Bike Brigade stated that only 1,000 tickets are available for a great price of $50 a ticket. Later that month, Beer By Bike Brigade said that they had sold 1,000 tickets and raised exactly $50,000. This raises a big problem for the Beer By Bike Brigade and Sabadash. One of two things must be true, but not both. Either they were conducting a raffle, which is what they called it, and they may have done so without a license and may have involved a private business in ways that are not legally permissible, or they may argue that, well, we called it a raffle by mistake but it was actually a sweepstakes, which presents its own problem. Sweepstakes must make a free entry option available to all entrants, and entrants may not be steered towards the paid option over the free option, and so, it should raise everyone's eyebrows that if you take the Beer By Bike Brigade's ticket sales claims as truthful, the arithmetic says that exactly 0 people requested 1 or more free tickets to enter to win the raffle. It is virtually impossible to believe that this outcome wasn't by design, and if it was by design, that would be a fast track to serious legal problems. And the problems continue to pile up when you look at all the times Mr. Revoking, Beer By Bike Brigade, Sabadash, and others have made it abundantly clear that when it comes to cars and other vehicles, they sell tickets by conducting raffles. Whether Sabadash has been conducting sweepstakes or raffles or both, let's circle back to the start where the question was put to you: what's really going on here? The United States Federal Trade Commission may have something to say about that. The FTC says that if you have to pay for taxes or shipping and handling charges or processing fees to get your prize, quote, you're dealing with a scammer. Well, Sabadash's fine print says there's a good chance you're going to have to pay up to get your prize. The FTC also says that, quote, only a scammer will say that paying increases your odds of winning. Does Sabadash, Beer By Bike, or anyone affiliated with them say that? Not only is that language frequently found on social media, but during a live drawing on Facebook, Matt Mater explicitly stated that, quote, the more you buy, the better your chances. And finally, the FTC warns that if you ignore all these red flags and still put your trust in a group that is likely scamming you, you should be aware that your data isn't safe. And what does Sabadash's website say about that topic? Well, they couldn't be more clear. They say they are not responsible for the security of your account or content, and that any time you touch one of their products or services, you do so, quote, at your own risk.